Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today, in this video, we're going to be going over some ideas which have been floated around over the last few weeks after having many conversations with many community members, especially a lot on the Tech Hub, and I'd like to personally thank Gorgeous Freeman and also RedNet for actually, discussing these points mainly, but also everybody else who was involved in the conversation. There are two narratives which are going around right now, and I would like them to be squashed because unfortunately they're wrong. So the first narrative, which is going around, is this idea that it is incredibly hard to get into top tier. It is one of the hardest things to do when it comes to the game, and also, we're at a point in War Thunder where the grind is too much. The other thing as well is this idea that when it comes to the player base is dying because of this issue. Therefore, in this video, we're going to discuss both of these, show all of the facts, and pretty much just go through the game is dying idea and also the top tier is unattainable idea around, what we've seen in the past. So the first place to start, and understand that this video is going to go through a lot of facts. It's going to go through pretty much the last year of a lot of stuff. It's probably going to be quite long-winded and also unedited, because I want to make sure that you can just see in front of you. There's no manipulation. There's just me showing you this stuff. So the first thing to understand is research. A lot of people have pointed to top tier being one of these areas which is incredibly hard to get to, incredibly costly when it comes to RP, especially when it comes to the vehicles, modifications, and SL. A few years ago, in 2017 and also 2018, as you can see here, I had a look at top tier for the major nations, the 5 of them that were available, and you can see that the tanks, which were greater or equal to 380,000 RP in November of 2017, there was 8 of them for the American tech tree. Now, just as a comparison, right now, in the game, there are 3 vehicles at top tier, which are that much. So the M1A1 Abrams, the M1A2 Abrams, and the H.E.A.T. Everything else is below 380,000. If you have a look at October 2018, it actually increased to 11. There were 11 vehicles at top tier which had prices greater or equal to 380,000. Once again, right now, talking about the 4th of January 2020, there is 3 in the American tech tree. Then we have a look at Germany. We had 8 vehicles overall in 2018. Remember, this is just over a year ago. Now, there is 2. There is 2 vehicles which are over 380 or equal to 380. This is the Leopard 2A5 and the Flak Panzer Roland 2. There has also been decreases in the amount of vehicles that are between 210,000 and 280,000, because remember, back in the day, 250,000 did not exist, as shown by this right here, since there was a massive jump from 210,000 to 380,000. By the end of 2018, this was when it was the hardest to grind through lineups in ground and air to top tier. It was when it was insane to grind through. You had to get through so many vehicles. Look at this. There were 10 vehicles at top tier for the Soviets, which were 380,000 or over. If you have a look at the tech tree now, what you find is there are 4 vehicles. You have the T-80U, the BMP-3, the Object 685, and the Tunguska. Okay? So we're comparing 10 vehicles to 4. This shows that there has been great reductions in the amount of RP that is required for a lot of top tier vehicles. And this is because of changes which were made over the time period when it came to War Thunder. Now we're going to go through these changes, and hopefully you get the idea here how this problem was huge a year or 2 ago and has been since rectified since this point. So let's look at the rectifications that were made over the 2019 period to do this, because I would agree, in 2018, this was a real problem. The grind to top tier was a massive issue because there was just so many vehicles and it was way too expensive. And remember, the total RP cost of a vehicle correlates to the total SL cost and also the modification RP and SL costs as well. So it wasn't just the fact that you had these crazy high tier vehicles, which were also really expensive RP-wise, their modifications were through the roof as well. So if you have a look at this change, so this is the first economy change of 2019, March the 1st. This was a large one. What they did is they reduced a lot of SL costs to many top-tier jets. On top of this, they linked a few vehicles together when it came to rank 5 and rank 6, therefore making it harder to go through the tech tree. So therefore they made it slightly harder to go through the tech tree, but in order to compensate for that, they made one of the largest economical updates in history. And this economical update came on the April, and they talk about it here. They also plan to reduce research and purchase costs for aircraft of rank 4 and 5, and also for ground vehicles rank 5 and 6 in a future update. You can see it right here. Then that update came on the 4th of April 2019. This is a post from Stoner, so we're not even halfway through the year yet, and it talks about the list of economical changes. They made everything drastically lower. What I mean by this is if you actually go to the economy changes, and everything will be linked in the description, so just go and check it out yourself, please do. If you look at the economy changes across the board for research costs, look how many went down. Look how many decreased. It was an insane amount which decreased, and it wasn't just, high tier vehicles. This was rank 4s, this was rank 5s. They made it insanely easier to get to top tier for every nation. Then you have a look at ground vehicles. Many vehicles going down by 200,000 RP, which meant that their crew training costs went down, which meant that their expert qualification went up, but it meant that purchase costs also went down by 500,000 on certain vehicles. Also, their RP multipliers went up. This meant that you were paying less for these vehicles in the forms of research, and it was easier for you to get these vehicles because your multiplier was increased. If you don't know what the RP multiplier is, it is a system which is linked to every vehicle. You can find it at the bottom of the stat card. It shows your research efficiency of that vehicle. It's normally in the form of a percentage, but on the right hand side you can see the number. For example, the Object 906, 2.14 times 100%, and then whatever, if you have premium on top of that. So you can see from these changes, they made everything drastically easier to research at the highest tiers of the game. This was a large change to the game which made everything so much easier. Then you had a July the 1st economy change. This, instead of just making, the general research and the cost of the vehicles and also increasing the amount of RP you get from vehicles, not just, in ground forces, but also in aircraft as well. And they also drastically reduced a lot of helicopters as well. This was a huge patch, which everybody just completely forgets about. Then, as I said, on July the 1st, so we're about halfway through the year right now, they do a lot of modification cost changes, and you can see some of them went up, but if you do a calculation looking at the ones which went down compared to the ones which went up, you are massively in the green, meaning that there are way more high-tier reductions than they are increases. You can see when we have a look at something like the Reggiani 2001, it's going up by 5,000. And then if you look at the MiG-15 BIS, decreasing by 210,000 RP on your modifications. Then helicopters got dropped across the board, and also others got slightly changed, but not in a huge way. Look how much got dropped off a lot of these top tier vehicles, and this was to bring them in accordance to the research changes that they just made a few months earlier. So therefore, already we're halfway through the year. It's become twice as easy, if not more, to grind to top tier when we look at rank 4, 5, and 6, and now 7. And also, even at the end of the year, we are nowhere near the situation we were a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago when it comes to the cost of these vehicles. This is not even talking about the new tech trees, which make it even easier to get into top tier. If you want to grind through Sweden right now, getting to its top tier is not hard to do. Then Italian aviation, or French aviation, or even naval, all of these things, correspond to this. Then we had a next one. This was July the 11th, where they formalized a lot of the changes. There was research and repair changes. You can see here that the general research price and all of this stuff didn't change too much for some vehicles. Others it did slightly change, but these were mainly SL costs. But then this was where all of the modification purchase costs were formalized right here. Then this is just it once again, so making it drastically cheaper for you to be able to research, you know, the modifications on top of already having them dropped here by over, some of them over 50%, right? Then we have the next post, which is on the 22nd of October. This is an economy and BR changes, so we're nearing the end of the year at this point. Now, this change was also significant because it meant that this line, which a lot of people missed, is very important. So RP bonuses for RB and SB now extends also into modification research. For example, if a player receives 1000 RP in the past for modification research after an RB battle and 1300 RP for vehicle research, the player now receives 1300 RP for both categories. This means that your modification research, which was always higher than your general research, is now linked to your overall research. So you are now making more research on top of the RP increases that they did in the start of the year, and also everything is reduced. So what we have is a situation where at this point in October of 2019, compared to every year in the past, you have reduced modification costs and also reduced research costs overall for the vehicles, reduced SL costs, and you have increased amount of RP that you are making, right? Simple as that. Now, here were some more economy changes that were made. These were generally repair costs, and I wanted to bring this up because this could definitely be used as a red herring when we have a look at general economy costs. So if you didn't know, over, you know, War Thunder's time, there is every so often where repair costs are changed a lot. Recently, the bomber repair costs were drastically changed, but also their rewards were drastically changed. So, you know, you have to look at them as a whole thing. But a lot of people will look at a graph like this and go, well, certain vehicles are really expensive to repair. All of this is based on player interaction with the vehicles. That basically means that there is an algorithm which is writing out these repair costs. So if a vehicle goes up highly in repair cost, that means that there is a subset of people out there who are doing incredibly well with the vehicle, or the majority of people are doing above average in that vehicle. Therefore, the SL cost goes up. This means that they're just making more money with it than, you know, was previously thought was able to be done. So that can be used as a red herring, because there will be some numbers which increase when we have a look at the difference here, and a lot of people will say, well, it shows here that, you know, these numbers increase, therefore they are making it harder. No, that is not the case. That is just completely based on player numbers. The next thing to also note is two things. In 2019, we had 5 separate events when it came to operations. If you didn't know, events like these are generally ways for individuals to be able to get a lot of vehicles and be able to, you know, use them for research. Normally, a lot of them are premiums, and if you just have a look at them in general, after having 5 events, so we had Operation Shipyard, we had the Festive Quest of 2018 going into 2019, you have, of course, the Sea Voyage event, which I thought was kind of a nice little event. Then, of course, you have Operation F.R.O.S.T, which is currently going on now, and then Operation H.E.A.T as well, which gave us stuff like the Orbital 74 HVG. All of these had the ability, even though I disagreed with, oh, I've missed one actually, haven't I? I've got to find it. So I did actually miss one. There was another event as well, which was my hated event of the year, but it did exist, so we do have to give it a little bit of credit for existing, because it still follows the same philosophy. So let's just drag this over here. Is the Battlefield Engineer event, as you can see. So the Battlefield Engineer event was another event that happened in 2019. This is not including all of the events that have happened previously, and a lot of the vehicles that are on offer in these events are premium vehicles. That means you can use them for research. That means that you can use them to be able to get through the tech trees, and also use them, if you want to, as coupons to sell. One of the things that has been very evident this year is Gaijin has been pushing the Gaijin market. The idea for this is so you can sell stuff from these events, including vehicles, parts, or whatever is on offer, and you can make some money out of it. The whole point of that is so you can use the Gaijin coin that is there on store packs, on premium time, on all of this stuff. This means that there is a way for an individual to take their time and convert it into money, and be able to convert that money, which yes is in Gaijin coin, but in the terms of the game is money. You are able to purchase whatever you want as long as you have enough of it, and it is a one-to-one trade-off with the US dollar. So that means you can dedicate time to events, get these vehicles, sell them on the market if you're a PC player, and be able to get premium time to be able to get, you know, all of these things. So that means that over this year, we've had unprecedented access to money when it comes to earning it in-game and paying and being able to buy packs. This translates to the fact that it's easier to be able to get premium, it's easier to be able to get other premium vehicles if you want to, and that's not even including the fact that all of these vehicles, bar a few of them, such as the Mkava and also the VT1, are premium vehicles, so they're also incredibly good for researching in the game as well. So you have all of these factors, the most events run in a calendar year, the most vehicles given away in events in a calendar year, and the fact that you can make money out of them all make it easier to research. All of these factors make it easier to research, even if you decide, you know, not to do them, because of the fact that they will be available on the market for you. The other thing to also mention is the fact that this year we have had a ton of top tier vehicles added to the game, which are premiums. Now, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, they still exist. Stuff such as, you know, the AMX-30 Super, the Leopard A1A1L44. Pretty much every nation at high tier now has some form of top tier premium that you can buy in ground forces, in air forces, and not so much in naval forces, but definitely in helicopters. The trend towards higher tier premiums has been seen across the board when it comes to these. Now, as I said, whether you agree with them or not, they still exist. They give you an avenue to be able to grind into the top tiers a lot faster than existed before, because those premiums didn't exist. If you want to grind through the German naval tech tree, you can buy the Eugen, and you don't even have to pay for the Eugen with real money, because if you do these events and get enough Gaijin coin, you can then use that. So there are these avenues that you can go through in order to get these. On top of this as well, you have other stuff such as sales. You have 3 major sales a year. You have the War Thunder Summer Sale, the War Thunder Birthday Sale, and the New Year in War Thunder, which is generally the Christmas sale. In at least 2 of these per year, premium time is 50% off. When it comes to a year of premium. That will cost you around $35 to $40 a year, which you can easily make in these events, which is something which you couldn't do in previous years. That did not exist. That whole mechanic did not exist. So you have unprecedented access to packs, unprecedented access to premium time, and unprecedented access to higher tier premiums. All of these things make it easier to grind into top tier. Whether you agree with them or not, they still exist, okay? So you have 2 times in a calendar year where you can get premium 50% off, which in my opinion is the best thing to do in War Thunder. If in order to, you know, grind efficiently, you know, premium is the best purchase you can make. It gives you plus 100% research in all game modes, just across it, plus Silver Lions boosters as well. The other thing to mention is the fact that in War Thunder right now, and this isn't something that is, you know, from this year, but it is something that does exist, is all of the boosters that you get on daily logins, and also all of the different events that they've been doing. If you didn't know that they've been doing social media events for certain stuff. Operation F.R.O.S.T is a great example of this. They did a social media event where if they got so many likes, so many retweets on all of their stuff, then you would get a decal in game plus a booster. So on top of that, you get a 70% booster for 10 matches, which is crazy good. They did this last year, but it just adds on to the fact that it is now easier to research because you have all of these factors. So you can see that there is a lot of information, there is a lot of data, there is a lot of stuff that we can point to, whether we look at changelogs, whether we look at events, whether we look at sales, whether we look at the Gaijin market, whether we look at other aspects such as even tournaments, if you want to bring that up. There has been more tournaments this year than there has been in War Thunder's history. This means that you have more access to GE, more access to premium time, more access to other stuff such as camouflages, which are all linked to the Gaijin market, so therefore you can sell it on there and buy packs that you want to. You see how this whole thing is circular, meaning that, you don't just have to pay, for something. There is a lot of other avenues that you can now, get into. And maybe this is a problem with, I don't know, an education thing where people don't know about these things, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist, right? So you have to, take advantage of them if you want to be as efficient as possible when it comes to grinding. Now, so that is the grind thing talked about, showing that over this year, we've had so many changes that have come to the game which have been positive, for grinding, meaning that it has become easier across the board to grind anything that you want in War Thunder. Apart from the lowest tiers, which haven't been changed, everything else has been changed up the wazoo. So if you're an individual who believes the grind is harder than ever, or, the grind is too much, even a year ago, none of this stuff was implemented, right? So just imagine back then, when you had to deal with the costs of stuff like this, how ridiculous it was. And this shows that at this point in time, if we look at War Thunder today, compared to the last 5 years, we're in a better position now than we have ever been when it comes to getting to top tier. You have so many avenues, you have so many options to get there. The only time I would actually say it has actually been easier to get to top tier in War Thunder is right back in the first year. And that is when they got rid of the 20 tier system. In 18th of December 2013, the 20 tier system was removed, replaced with the 5 rank system. Now yes, back then I would say it was very easy to get to top tier, incredibly easy. But also, the game was completely different, and that is over 6 years ago. In this last 6 years, I would say that, actually no, I'd say 5 years, because that's when, ground became a thing. It is now easier than ever to be able to get to the highest echelons of the game, or top tier. Right, so let's go through some stats. The War Thunder player base is dying. This is the second point that we need to get into. The fact is, this is brought up every year, and I'm sick of it. I've actually made videos in the past looking at this, looking at different data points, and the problem is we don't have a publicly available number. We don't have a number which screams to us, okay, this is the amount of people who actually play War Thunder. Instead, we don't have anything publicly which does that, so we have to look at secondary information, and this is why this narrative will never die. But the problem is, even if you look at the secondary information, it doesn't fit with the narrative. So let's go through that secondary information. The first thing is Steam. So Steam only represents a small part of the player base when it comes to War Thunder. It is not something which is generally, something to point to show the overall player base, but it is good for showing trends. So let's have a look at the trend of the game. If you have a general look, you can see that there is a general trend around when updates drop and when there are no updates, and also around certain areas such as when events are. If you have a look at the general trend across, though, the general trend is the average amount of players in War Thunder over the last 5 to 4 years has been increasing. It has been increasing persistently, and that is seen through the average players and the peak players, but mainly through the average players, where you can see it gradually going up. Even if we go back to 2017, 2018, you can see the numbers are down to 10,000, 11,000, then there's a jump to 12,000, now to 13,000, and now we're nearly at 14,000. So the average amount of players on the Steam charts in general is increasing, and that just shows that there is a general increase in the popularity of War Thunder on Steam. These are all publicly available. I'll leave links in the description. The next thing to look at is Xbox. I know that's kind of odd, but it's something that we have to look at. So one of the interesting things about Xbox is it was obviously War Thunder was released on it. You know what's also an interesting thing? If you correlate all of the reviews for War Thunder on the Xbox platform, there is more reviews for War Thunder than Fortnite. I know that sounds really odd, doesn't it? But also, if you look at the top 3 games that are available, you can see that War Thunder is way up there when it comes to people who are reviewing the game, and also when you look at its rating. It's at 4.5 stars right now. Fortnite is at 3.5 stars. Cuisine Royale has crazy amount of reviews, showing that it's obviously doing very well on the Microsoft platform, which of course is Xbox. 217,000 reviews overall, and that is not downloads, that is just reviews. And the reason why it was kind of confusing looking at that number is when you actually go to, let's say, the US Microsoft Store, there's only 2,000 ratings. So you're like, okay, well, where does it get this figure of 185,000 from? Well, if you have a look at the Canadian store, the amount of ratings is different. Then you have a look at the Russian store, different once again, and then the Bulgarian store, it's also different. But what you'll find is Microsoft has a single store for pretty much every country that exists when it comes to the world, and even, you know, multiple ones for different languages. So this is the correlated amount overall, or the collective amount of reviews that War Thunder has across all of its stores. This is in the top 10 when it comes to top 3 games, which it also is on Steam, by the way, showing that this is a top 10 free-to-play game, which is crazy to think about when, you know, you think about the amount of people saying that this game is dying. Remember, War Thunder was released on Xbox not too long ago. Okay, so if we have a look at the War Thunder Xbox release date, we can see when it actually was released, showing that it was completely open to the public in a free-to-play title. It was the 23rd of the 10th, so the 23rd of October 2018, so about a year ago. This thing has garnered 185,000 reviews in about a year. That's crazy. Especially, once again, when you compare it to other games which are seen as very popular as well, such as Destiny 2, Apex Legends, and Fortnite. Now, let's have a look at the PlayStation statistics. It's a lot easier to look at PlayStation statistics, thank God, because they're a lot more open about their statistics. So let's have a look at, this is GameStat.com, talking about the amount of players that are found on War Thunder. And unfortunately, the screen is a little bit off, so I'll zoom out so you can just see it. Oh no, okay, it stretches with the screen, right? Give me 2 seconds, I'll fix this for you, just so you can see it. There we go. So, here you go. This is the important part. So overall, since the 22nd of this, as of the 22nd of December 2019, there have been 6 million players who have at least tried War Thunder on the PlayStation. Over the period of the last month, from the 22nd of November to the 22nd of December, there has been 70,000 new players. Okay? You can see the general player count here. Now understand, this does not tell the whole story. This is just people who are downloading the game. Maybe they play it once, maybe they don't do a lot. What you can find is 620,000 players have earned at least 1 trophy. So that means around about 10% of people are just not, you know, even really doing anything. But if you look at the 90%, that's still 5.4 million people that are at least playing the game or have tried the game in some aspect. Now, this does not correlate to active players, but it shows that the general interest of players over time on PlayStation is staying pretty similar. It means that it hasn't hit, you know, its actual peak when it comes to the amount of downloads that there's going to be and also the amount of people that are playing. The fact that it's been able to keep the activity consistent across it shows that there is a general upwards trend once again when it comes to the general player base. Then we move on to some other statistics. So now I'm going to have to reformat the screen again. As I said, you know, we're doing this on the fly, so bear with me because I was actually editing some other stuff. So yeah, now is the time to show some other things. So this is... this should fix it. So this is a site called Sullynome. If you don't know what Sullynome is, it is the best site for tracking statistics on Twitch. What this basically means is that we can have a look at any game or any streamer or anything you need to when it comes to the amount of, you know, people watching something on Twitch or watching a specific thing. It's just absolutely amazing, the amount of information that is available on this site. So if you have a look, you can see that over the last year, over the last calendar year, the amount of hours watched of War Thunder is up by nearly 50%. The amount of hours broadcasted is only up by 14%. So that means that yes, there are more hours broadcasted, but the ratio to the amount that people are watching compared to the amount that is being broadcasted has skyrocketed. The average viewers is up by 50%. The average channels is only up by 15 though, and the viewer ratio is up by 27.4%, with the maximum amount of viewers nearly up 200%. That generally means that if we have a look at it, if you just want to look at the basics, on Twitch, War Thunder is now 50% higher than it was a year ago. It also has double the amount of viewership that it had a year ago. That is bonkers. That is insane when you think about it. In a calendar year of a game which has been out for around about 6 years, for it to have that much of an increase over a year is only a positive sign. Then we have some interests over time. Now this tells a slightly different story, and I'll tell you why. So this is Google Trends. If you don't know what Google Trends is, it's a site where you can pretty much just have a look at any trend when it comes to web search, when it comes to YouTube search, when it comes to news search, and we're just going to do web search for this just because it's the largest category. If you have a look at War Thunder, this is where we are right now. So we're at 30, but the data set is incomplete. Another thing to also note is there was an improvement to the data collections on Google Trends on the 1st of the 1st, 2016. This meant that a lot of trends actually decreased quite heavily, meaning that, you know, a lot of them go down. But if you have a look at the major spikes that are available for War Thunder, you have March 2013, which is the first spike. This is when the game had just come out of, actually it just entered OBT and actually had the 19th of March had update 1.29. Then you have another spike, which is the... Let's just go back to it. Then you have another spike, which is right here. This is December 2013. What this correlates to, if you want to have a look, is the update 1.37, where they got rid of the old system and replaced it with the new 5 ranks. There was a lot of advertising went into that and also completely rejuvenated the game. Then you have another spike at May 2014. May 2014, if you want to have a look at it, is of course ground forces units into OBT. This was the largest thing in War Thunder's history when it comes to War Thunder growing as a general game. Then there was another one in February 2015, and if you have a look at that, that correlates to American Tech Tree being available to all players in ground. So you can see that those are the general trends that we see worldwide from War Thunder. So this is all countries. It's very popular in Ukraine, Russia, all of those places. But yes, if you have a look at the general trends, and the way this works, right, so you can actually see here, is it's all based off the top highest trend. So if you have your top trend at 100, and then if you compare it to everything else, then, you know, that's how this data set works. So if we have a look at the last few years, where it's been around, you know, 30 to 40, and then it's dropped a little bit in, you know, July, but then it's increased again, and now it's on the increase again. We're still at about 30% of the level which we were at that highest peak, which was when OBT came out. But you can see that that trend has pretty much been there for an incredibly long time. And then if we actually look at the last year, the past 12 months, the trend once again is actually upwards to the end of the year compared, you know, to the rest. You can see that there is a general uptick at the start of the year, then around March, which is when the first update of the year comes out. Remember, that was the Tunguska and stuff. There is an uptick, and then, you know, general interest, a little bit lower during the summer periods, and then it increases again near the end of the year. You can actually see this general trend every year for the last pretty much for the last 3 or 4 years in War Thunder. So it isn't a trend which has changed, it's a trend that is kept the same. Then, if we want to have a look at other things, there is this narrative that War Thunder had so many more players back in the day, had, a crazy amount of players, and, it's only been decreasing ever since. This is untrue. As I said, if you have a look at all the statistics here, and if you have a look at general screenshots from the past when it comes to active players online, everything like this, what you will find is that in War Thunder, you actually have a general trend upwards when it comes to the amount of players, but you will also have specific times in history where certain events are really popular. And with this, you can see it with this right here. So this was a celebration for War Thunder hitting 100,000 players. This is something that has only happened once in War Thunder's history, and it's, required an event. It was as simple as that. This happened in the 22nd of May right here, and guess what that correlates to? It correlates to Ground Forces OBT coming out, and all of that wonderful stuff. So they had a 100k festival, basically, with a bunch of discounts and everything like that for the players, but this is to show here in this news article that 100k players or more of that was not something that happened all the time in the past. It wasn't something which generally happened at all, since this was a point in history which had to be pointed out, and be newsworthy. So this idea that War Thunder used to have, 100,000 players regularly, 150,000 players regularly, whatever it is just wrong. Now, this was a screenshot taken literally half an hour ago before I started playing this, before I started recording this, and you can see it's 70,000 people that are online. 70,000 people. Now, if you want to actually have a real-life look at it, here you go. This is War Thunder at time of recording, 20 past 10 in the day of the 4th of January 2020, and it's sat at 70,000 people. The game is not dying. I know I'm going to hear these narratives over the next few months. For some reason, January and February is just one of those times where everybody starts losing their crap in War Thunder, and it's getting really, really tiring to have to do this every year. But these ideas that the grind has become harder over time. The fact that, it is impossible to get to top tier for the majority of players. The fact that, people do not have access to all of these different ways of being able to get what you want in War Thunder. The fact that, the game is dying. All of these. Stop with these false narratives. 2019, overall, was a large year for War Thunder when it came to reducing a lot of the problems that you're talking about. Even in 2018, we had reductions to stuff like parts and FPE. We had reductions to requirements for certain ideas. We had increases in certain RP modifiers. But for some reason, this narrative keeps happening. War Thunder, when it comes to the grind, is in the best place it has been, and there's the most variety that there has been in a very long time. Maybe if you want one specific vehicle and none of the other vehicles, maybe then you have, issues. Maybe if you only grind one specific tree and bash your head against the wall over and over again, trying to get to the top tier, yes, you're going to lose your mind, and yes, you're going to get annoyed. But there are easy solutions to this. Play different things, get involved in communities, have a bit of fun with the game instead of focusing on research. Focus on other things, getting decals, doing these events, focus on just talking to people, getting involved. One of the best things that has happened to me when it comes to War Thunder is being part of the Tech Hub Discord, talking to hundreds, if not thousands of different people all the time, and being able to get their opinions on stuff, discussing things, talking about history, talking about the game, and having a shared idea around it, which is War Thunder. And it just makes everything so much easier if you have that, instead of focusing on these numbers. Because instead what's going to happen is you're going to go stir crazy, and you're going to forget about facts. You're going to forget about all of these facts that I've put in front of you right now. And instead what you're going to do is you're going to turn around and you're going to say, no, this is impossible. I can't do this. Rubbish. People have been doing this for 6 years, and it is now at this point in time, easier than ever before to get to top tier. You can do it. Stop complaining and let's go. And let's do it together. It's as simple as that. At this point in War Thunder's history, it is the easiest to grind to top tier. And it's also the easiest point to actually not pay for things, if you want to put it like that, because of stuff like the gaijin market, the amounts of tournaments, and all of that. I hope this video has been informational. I hope you have enjoyed it. We'll go back to edited stuff tomorrow. And also, I'm going to be doing a video looking at the monetization of War Thunder going forward. Because the thing is, remember, the whole business structure or business formula of War Thunder is based around the grind. So if you decrease it, there has to be other ways of monetizing it. And that is the bit that is always forgotten about. There is also the fact of this idea that if you just lessen it, more players will just magically come to the game. If that was the case, we would have had the most players ever this year compared to any other year. And if you want to make that claim, well, I should say 2019, and if you want to make that claim, that's kind of counter to that whole game is dying idea, isn't it? You're going to have to pick one. Have fun with that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Trigger Hippie, Eugene's Terry, and also Elove Goat and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.